Hello, and welcome to the Unleash Your Retirement podcast with your host, David Corin. I'm Wendy McConnell, and we are joined once again by Mike Smith. Hello, fellas.
Hello, Wendy.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you too. How is everyone doing?
Outstanding. Having a great day. Getting ready. This is still the holiday season, so we're getting ready for that. But we're doing just great. And a lot of times, you get together around Christmas with your adult children. That can happen, which is a good thing. I'm looking forward to seeing my kids. My son's flying up for Christmas, and my daughter's flying out from Montana as well. And that always brings up the possibility that they might ask for some support or some help or something like that. And they know that dad's a financial advisor, so they may ask me questions about their investments. That it always comes up. So, and we deal with this a lot, don't we, Mike, with our clients?
Yeah, a lot of times they are getting questions from their adult children as well. Can you help me out here, mom or dad?
Oh, we see it all too often.
They're hitting you up. They're hitting you up for cash.
They hit the parents up. It's a hard knock story. This has happened and that has happened.
Well, the economy. Come on, Dad.
The economy. Yeah. Things. I'm working hard and I just can't get ahead. And, I really want to buy a house, but I can't do it.
Well, if they're millennial or below, they won't be able to. It's just a foregone conclusion now. They will never own a house.
Well, let's hope not. That's the case.
Just kidding.
Yeah, but it is something to think carefully about before you jump in and provide the support, because let's face it, there are babies, right? Yeah, they've grown up, but they're still our children. And as parents, right, Mike, you feel like
you love them, you want to help out any way you can. It's just natural.
Anything. It's just natural. And most of our clients are like that too. They want to help when they get that question. Now, what's important to do was to think this through very carefully, because if you are retired already, well, let's take if you're not retired and you're still working, well, you've got to understand your cash flows. And if you are supporting an adult child, and a lot of children will move back home for various reasons after they graduate school because they're millennials and they just can't, afford something. But, the studies show that 23% of people will reduce their savings for themselves by 23% if they're taking care of an adult child. So that just means you're stealing from yourself to support the child. If they decide to come back home for it and stay with you, you reduce your savings by that much. It's a shocking statistic to me, but it's true.
Yeah.
And it does sort of make sense when you really think about it, because you have to spend a lot more on that adult child to take care of them when they're home. Right.
Yeah. And you have to be firm in that case and explain where I need to save for my retirement so I don't have to move in with you when I'm old.
Right. That's what you don't want to do. You don't want to be living in your kid's basement when you're older, Oh, Mom, sorry, we got a place in the basement for you because you don't have any money left. and we can't afford to take care of you. So yeah, you don't want to be in that position.
Yeah.
And that's key, is to really think carefully about it pre-retirement. Post-retirement, it's an even bigger deal because it's not about savings for retirement. Now it's about potentially running out of money because you reallocate over to the child dollars that you would have set aside, would have been spending on yourself, right? Or would have had saved up for later in life, especially during that, that period of time when it's no-go that we talked about earlier, talked about before in a previous podcast. You're in a no-go time, there's a lot of expenses potentially on the medical side that come up, and you're going to need extra assets potentially back in that no-go time period, right? So you have to really think it through very, very carefully before you make the decision to provide that help. Now, if you have a solid plan, like I've talked about before, so you have your go-go years, your slow go, your no-go, and you know that your plan is solid and you've got a lot of wiggle room in your plan, well, then there are things you can do for your kids, right, Mike?
There are certain ways to help them. And Wendy, to your point, it has become almost impossible for young people to afford a home, especially if they have student debt. And in the Richmond area, I know some of the new townhomes that are renting, the rent is outrageous. I'm sure it's the case up there as well. So we really like, if you're able to, when you have a solid plan, is helping with the down payment for the kids is, I think, a great way to get them off to a good, really solid start.
Yeah. In fact, I've actually did that for my son. I helped him with the down payment on his townhome that he bought. Once he graduated college and he was ready, he didn't have the resources, but he had a good job, so he had good income. He could qualify, but he needed help with the down payment. So I did that. I expect to get that back at some point, but I made that clear. But at any rate, that is a great way for him to build equity, gets him in a house. I felt really good about that because it really gets him set financially in a good place right out of the gate. And I've coached him. He's doing a good job putting money into the 401k. He's taking all the right steps, to really build his financial future. And he's only 28. So he's got a really bright financial future ahead of him. And I think my daughter's much younger, and you've got sons that are one's still in college
age,
and one just getting out or getting ready to.
Just getting out.
A little different for them because they're a little bit more, they don't have as many resources. Like my daughter, she doesn't have the great job. She's out of college, but she's got a decent job, but she's struggling to get ahead. She's certainly not in a position yet to really have the income needed to own a house. So I really can't help her with the down payment yet, but I'm willing to once she gets to that point. And she will. I just have to give her that time. So now she may want that money for something else. I'm saying, no, that's not how it works. I'm not giving you, and that is important to be able to draw those lines in the sand with your kids and say, hey, no, that's not, I agreed to do this. I'll do this for you. I want to do this for you, but I'm not going to just give you money to buy a new car or, furnish your apartment or something like that. You follow me?
Oh yeah.
That you got, because there's this fine line. Especially as young adults need to learn how to manage their money, right? That's critical. Don't you agree, Mike?
Yeah, you need to start talking to them. Like I talked to my oldest about starting to build the credit. Credit's not necessarily a bad thing. To have some sort of loan where you're paying it off consistently, start to build up your credit for when he is ready to buy a house. There's more and more people now that are self-employed in this generation. So they need to know more about how they're going to pay their taxes, paying the Social Security tax. So they need to get on top of it.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that they necessarily need to talk to a financial planner, but they need to know the basics. They need to know the basics of personal finance. If they didn't get that training, they should get it. I actually have had a lot of parents encourage their adult children to take my class. I call my class Personal Finance on Steroids because it has so much sound information about just basically personal finance and how to take care of your, the debt, how to manage your assets, how to invest, the power of compounding interest, all of these things that are so critical. And so, I would encourage, by the way, any of my clients that are struggling with this to have their kids come take my class. I'll let them audit it. I won't even charge them. So let them come and take the class and they'll get a lot out of it and it'll really help them with their financial future going forward. Now, if you're in a position where you do have plenty of assets and you're going to leave a big bundle behind if you don't spend it and you just feel like, that's not, and we have this situation a lot with clients. They're just not in a position to spend all of their assets and you do want to help. Well, like Mike said, first way, you can help with a down payment. What are some other ways, Mike?
529 funds for the grandchildren are very popular. Give them give yourself a little bit of a state tax break, but also help out your children and cover some of the education costs are going up so much. So,
Yep. So help the grandchildren that way. Or if you don't have grandchildren, one of the things, and you've got a young person that's working, like, they have income, but they're not able to save any money. Well, you can contribute to a Roth IRA for them. You can put in up to $7,000 into a Roth IRA you don't have to put all of that, but if you say, okay, well, I want to give 5,000 to my kids, you could put 5,000 into a Roth IRA for each of them. And you're well under the gifting rules, which are very generous. A lot of people worry about gifting tax and all this kind of stuff. But in all honesty, there's really no huge limitation on how much you can gift without any kind of tax liability. The only time that a gift tax comes into play is if your estate is so large that you're going to owe estate taxes. And so you've given money away and they'll recoup it at the end, and that'll reduce your estate tax exemption. So, but most people are not in that category. The vast majority of people don't have $20 million plus at death. They're going to be in a different situation below that, which means that it's sort of a moot point, and they can pretty much give away as much as they want to give away. But if they want to stay within the rules, I think it's $18,000 now annually per person. So how does that work out, Mike? So if they have 2 kids and they're married, how much, and then both of their kids are married, well, how much they give to each?
Next year, the gift tax limit is $19,000
okay.
Per person. So a married couple could give $38,000 to any one individual. So it adds up quickly. As David mentioned, you can give more than that, but to make it simple, $19,000 right now is the gift limit. So that's quite a bit. And so if you were giving you and your wife were giving money to a child and they were married, $38,000 plus another $38,000, it can really make a pretty nice down payment.
And each parent can give the $18,000. So you could give, like you said, 38 and 38. That's right. So it's a big number. It adds up very, very quickly for them. So, and without even bumping into those rules, because the only thing about the estate tax, I'll just caveat there. Yeah, right now the estate tax, they're pretty high, but you just never know. I mean, at one time it was $1 million. Everything over $1 million had an estate tax liability. And that could easily change in the future. Right now, I don't think in the next 4 years we'll see it change and drop significantly, because it is very damaging for business owners, farmers, things like that when it comes to that issue. I don't see it dropping a whole bunch, but it could. We'll just have to keep an eye on it and see. So the other place that I mentioned that put the money into the Roth. That's something that I've done for both of my kids as they've worked, put money into the Roth, because the nice thing about the Roth is that, it has this penalty feature if they pull it out prior to 59 and a half. So I'm actually, by putting money into the Roth, encouraging them to save for retirement. Now, they can take the money out and pay the penalty if they want to, but they're less inclined to do that. They're more likely to set that money aside and let it grow. And it's a nice tax-free benefit for them later on.
Yeah, for sure. Roths are outstanding, especially start when you're young.
So to answer this, you need to be able to say no to kids sometimes, because you don't want to end up in a situation where you have to work longer. Let's say if you supported a child early on and you just weren't able to save, and so now you're not ready for retirement. So you have to set money, you have to work longer, add extra years. Years that could have been your go-go years are now still working years, and that's no fun for anybody. And the other possibility is that you give money beyond your means, and you end up in a very big pickle when you get to those no-go years. You just don't have the assets set aside to take care of things. So those are the things you have to watch. That's why you really have to be very careful when a child comes to you. And it's not easy, by the way. You can't, if a child asks for money, you can't just say, no, not going to do that. That doesn't work. You have to be very, I would say, diplomatic about it. Very diplomatic, because you don't want to hurt the child. You want to make sure that they understand you love them, you care for them, You really want them to be successful, and you think the right thing to do right now for yourself, because you have to be a little bit selfish here, for yourself and for them too, in many ways, because you're forcing them to figure it out on their own, which they're an adult child. They're adults. They should be able, I shouldn't say adults, they're adults. They need to figure it out on their own. They can't always fall back on mom and dad, and you're not helping them if you're allowing them to always fall back on you and not figure it out on their own. They need to figure it out on their own so that they don't have a problem going forward. They've got it. They know it. They figured it out. They work through it. Then that helps their confidence going forward, and it really benefits them in the long run. By the same token, you have to sometimes say no just because, it will hurt you, and you need to explain that. I pay for a lot of times our clients don't really start saving for retirement until after the kids are done with college, because they just can't set the money aside. We've seen that time and time again, where we start working with clients who have great incomes, but they basically paid all that money for 2 or 3 kids to get through college. And now they've got, 10 or 15 years before they retire. Now they can really save, but they haven't saved much up to that point because they were putting so much money. So if a child comes back to them after that, during that time period, that's very challenging because they really need to be selfish and save for themselves, max out their own savings at that point, and not put them, redirect that money back to our kid. Right, Mike?
Yeah, it's important for them you may need to gently remind them that you paid for this wonderful education. That was a big commitment on your part. Now it's time to really catch up on your retirement. And it's important. I saw a stat recently that about 50% of college age kids, they don't have any budget right now. So that's a great thing to start them on. And we've all been there where, hey, this year we're cutting back. We're not buying a new car. We can't do the vacation. Sometimes that's the way life rolls.
Yeah, they've experienced that. They've probably seen you do that throughout the lifetime when you've made those hard decisions at time. And you said, this year we're cutting back on Christmas spending, or, this year we're not going to do a vacation.
Right.
Because things are a little tight, you get rough, or, you got one child's in college now and can't do stuff like you used to because of the financial strain, if you didn't set money aside in a 529 ahead of time. And that's one of the other reasons that you can really help out your kids by putting money in a 529 for grandchildren, because it takes that stress and allows them to save for themselves as opposed to really having to focus so hard on saving for the college education for the kids. And we do have a lot of clients that do really fund for college through the 529 program for their grandchildren, all of them sometimes, in some cases.
Going back to lending money to the kids too, I wanted to point out too that you need to be careful of the other kids. There's been a lot of hurt feelings from time to time where even a small loan to one kid wasn't given to the other one, and the family dynamics can get really tough. So you may have to make it equal somehow.
Yeah. And to that very point, I mentioned earlier that I helped my son with his down payment on his house. Well, I haven't done that for my daughter yet. And the only reason I haven't is because she's just not in a position with the kind of steady income flow that would allow her to qualify for a mortgage. But I've told her when she's ready, I will help, period. That I will do the same. And that's just sort of part of that communication with them to try and keep them from being upset and feeling, like you said, getting their feelings hurt and having that family dynamic come into play. So we've made that clear. So it's just, you have to be thoughtful. We can afford to help our kids, and we want to, but we also don't want to unnecessarily prop them up and allow them to avoid learning the important life lessons that they need to learn about finances. We absolutely don't want to. I don't want to. There's something about you have to learn it on your own.
Because if you don't, then they're going to keep coming back because they've not learned.
That's exactly right.
Right.
And you have to break them of that habit at some point in time. It's a wonderful situation in some ways to be in where you really can give. And again, if you've got a good plan, You understand your cash flows. You know what you can give comfortably, right? That's important. You have to have done the math. You have to know what is going to be comfortable to me. How much could I give comfortably and not impair in some way my own retirement, right? You have to know that number. If you know that number and it's a decent number, great. Now you can give. It's a good position to be in, but it may not be the right decision for the child, right? It's maybe not the right time. They have more lessons to learn to be fiscally responsible about what they're doing in their own lives. It's sort of like trying to teach Congress to not spend too much money sometimes, but you really want to make sure that they understand you love them, you care for them, you want to help them, and you will help them in the best way you can. But right now you feel like it doesn't make sense to just cough up money when they need to learn their lessons, right?
One other suggestion I would make is if you have an advisor, a lot of times the advisors will meet with a person who's their child's getting their first job, sit down with the advisor, maybe with their parent not there, and just have a talk with them. How do I set aside this money to get at least a match at the work plan? What sort of investment should I be doing? I just helped out a young child just out of college of a client of ours, and it's a good feeling. Get them off to a good start.
Yeah, that's actually something that many advisors do. We do it, is that we will work with the adult children of our clients, and we don't really have any minimum to do that. We do it sort of as a service, as as part of the family. They're part of the family. We're managing the parents' assets and working with them. They have a plan. We know their plan, and we will then help. If they want the child to work with us, we will, if the child's willing. And so we do actually have a lot of clients' children as clients, more or less. So we have a lot of that going on right now, which is, I think, important for us. If you think about it from the standpoint of a planner like we are, it's very important for us to maintain that continuity of those assets, throughout generations. So, it's a nice thing to do, yes. But it's also, it's not altruistic, so to speak, from our perspective, because, we really do benefit in the long run if that child then becomes a client and those assets stay under our firm's management. I may not be around, but there's going to be other generations of advisors here. Mike and I might not be around because you can see that silver hair. He's got
Very
some silver
nice.
hair.
It's just, what has this turned into?
All righty, so we'll finish up. But anyway, my point being is that as a firm, when you're a firm like ours and you have many generations within the firm, we want to make sure that we're helping both the kids and both the parents and the children, and then their children. We want to be a multi-generational firm and continue to work with people throughout. So it's critical, and for people to be a little bit selfish, mindful when it comes to their kids, and direct them to your advisor. So in our case, we are your advisor. Send the kids to us if these questions come up. We'd be happy to work with them and help them get off to a good start.
And how do people get in touch with you, David?
They can go to our website, RVA Wealth Management. Our phone number's there, rvawealthmanagement.com. Phone number's there, or they can set up and get a free consultation there as well. So, it's available. We can also do the 20-minute Ask Anything. So we look forward to hearing from you.
All right. Well, thank you to both of you, and thank you for listening today. Please like, follow, and share this podcast with your friends. Until next time.
Thank you for listening to the Unleash Your Retirement podcast. Click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. Visit our website at www.rvawealthmanagement.com or give us a call at 804-497-2100. And don't forget to click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of RVA Wealth Management. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning.
Content here is for illustrative purposes and general information only. It is not legal, tax, or individualized financial advice, nor is it a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold any specific security or engage in any specific trading strategy. Results will vary. Past performance is no indication of future results or success. Market conditions change continuously. This commentary reflects the personal opinions, viewpoints, and analysis of RVA Wealth Management. It does not necessarily represent those of RFG Advisory, Private Client Services, their clients, or their employees. This commentary should not be regarded as a description of advisory services provided by RVA Wealth Management or RFG Advisory, or performance returns of any client. The views reflected in the commentary are subject to change at any time without notice. Securities offered by registered representatives of Private Client Services member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services offered by investment advisory representatives of RFG Advisory, a registered investment advisor. Private Client Services, RVA Wealth Management, and RFG Advisory are unaffiliated entities. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where RFG Advisory and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. No advisory services may be rendered by RFG Advisory unless a client agreement is in place.